Coming up today on the Nick Craig Show, after more than 1,000 days, the state of North Carolina officially has a budget. Governor Josh Stein hosting a signing ceremony yesterday. We'll get into all the details coming up. And a good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand. It is completely free to do so. Just search for the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app or visit the website nickcraig.com. Our program this morning brought to you by the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program. You can also get access to our daily show notes that is available over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. After more than 3 years, after more than 1,000 days, the state of North Carolina officially has a state budget, as Democrat Governor Josh Stein held a signing ceremony at the governor's mansion Tuesday morning, signing the more than 630-page, $34.4 billion budget into law. And the long and the short of the story is, and I've got a lot of clips from the governor coming up, the long and the short is the governor didn't really have a choice. When you go back and look at what this piece of legislation did, how this bill passed, even though we're talking about a state budget, it follows the same process as any other piece of legislation, which means it receives votes in both the North Carolina House and Senate, in most cases 2 votes, for a second and third reading, then it is presented to the governor. It follows the same legislative process that we cover with any other piece of legislation that we cover. It had very strong bipartisan support. The final vote in the House was 88-21. There's only 71 Republicans. And in the North Carolina Senate, the final vote was 35-10. And so this put the governor in a position where and you'll hear directly from him coming up here as we go through the show here on this Wednesday, he didn't really have much of a choice. He had to sign this budget because if he chose not to, A, he would have looked very foolish, and B, he would have been overridden. And we've already seen since the legislative session began back in early 2025, the legislature runs in a biennium session. So you have the long session the year after an election take place. So that was in 2024. The long session started in 2025. The short session going on now here in 2026. We've already seen a dozen plus veto overrides in that relatively, year and a half time span here between the governor and the legislature, as they have been able to work with some individuals across the aisle, which of course has been a major political story here. Individuals like Representative Carla Cunningham, individuals like Representative Shelley Willingham, individuals like Representative Nasheed Majid. All those individuals, those 3 previous Democrats, were primaried back in March of this year by the Democrat Party, by Governor Josh Stein, for working with Republicans on pieces of legislation that they believe to be common sense. Things like public safety, things like making sure that law enforcement agencies across the state of North Carolina work with federal immigration forces. Not that local law enforcement becomes federal immigration, but that they work with federal immigration. And they work with ICE, and they work with the authorities at the national level that are responsible for enforcing immigration law. For those issues, 3 Democrats in the North Carolina General Assembly are not returning next year. 2 of them are now registered unaffiliated. 2 of them allowed 4 veto overrides to go forward just last week in Raleigh. And so the reason I say the governor has no choice and had no choice is because he really didn't. He absolutely did not have a choice with this budget passing with the strong bipartisan majorities that it did. The governor was essentially a lame duck Now, he could have pontificated. He could have done what Roy Cooper did nearly his entire 8 years in the governor's mansion, which was talk about how all of these things need to happen. The General Assembly puts many of those things into a budget. Roy Cooper vetoes the budget, as he consistently did, with no leadership ability at all in the governor's mansion during his 8 years as governor, and veto it, and then put on this big trick and pony show, get the veto overridden, and then claim victory on some of the things in the budget. Does that make sense? That's what Roy Cooper did. That's been the traditional path for Democrat governors here in North Carolina. Roy Cooper would veto budget after budget and then go around the state highlighting some of the successes, highlighting things like Medicaid expansion, which he vetoed. Make sure you remember that. You're seeing a lot of political ads starting to pop up on television. Roy Cooper vetoed Medicaid expansion here in North Carolina. It was overridden by the North Carolina General Assembly, which I still think was a stupid idea. It was overridden by the North Carolina General Assembly, and then Roy Cooper took credit for something that he literally did not sign. He vetoed the legislation. I mean, that's the kind of political drama, the political nonsense that we're used to seeing here in North Carolina. And I'll give the governor credit. I'll give Josh Stein credit here. He has been much more open and seemingly much more willing at this point. It's a long, if he's going to run again and serve his 2 terms as he's allowed to do under state law, he'll have 8 years in the governor's mansion if he's successful in a re-election. He's a little more than a year and a half into his term now. There's still time for things to change, but it would appear, at least from the early onset, watching Governor Stein, a Democrat, interact with the Republican-led General Assembly, he is managing this far better than what we had seen from the past, what we had seen from his predecessor in Roy Cooper. All right, let's dive into some of the details here. Governor Josh Stein hosting a signing ceremony at the governor's mansion yesterday. This is how he opened his comments in Raleigh.
This budget bill gets a lot of things right. It delivers the largest starting teacher pay raise in nearly 50 years and the largest overall teacher pay raise in the last 15 years. It protects health care for millions of North Carolinians by fully funding Medicaid. It gives double-digit pay raises to state law enforcement officers and bonuses to local law enforcement officers. It appropriates another $700 million to help the people of Western North Carolina continue their recovery from Hurricane Helene. The budget also makes meaningful investments in our community colleges, the DMV, child care, and summer food programs for our kids. These are real wins worthy of celebration and worthy of my signature. So after careful deliberation, this morning I will sign the state budget into law.
Careful deliberation, as the governor says there, highlighting some of the top-line things that this budget accomplishes after months of negotiation between Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly. Deals with things like the spending level, tax policy, education, Medicaid oversight, Hurricane Helene recovery, and continues a lot of the things that lawmakers in Raleigh have been pushing now for going on 15 years. Big-time raises for teachers, state employees, law enforcement, continued schedule income tax cuts, which affects every single person across North Carolina, hundreds of millions of dollars for Hurricane Helene recovery out in the western half of our state, the Opportunity Scholarship Program, which you'll hear from the governor coming up in a little bit about. That is the school choice program that is seemingly growing with popularity as each and every day goes by here in North Carolina. More guardrails on Medicaid after the new reports and stories have come out, one just a couple of months ago from State Auditor Dave Bolick, highlighting what he believes to be some problems with ABA therapy, as well as other several tax and policy changes. It's 630 pages long. It's $34.4 billion. It is a major piece of legislation. There's a lot of dense stuff in there. It is a major spending plan that has taken years to get to. The budget was first being negotiated back in March, April, May of last year. Republicans between the North Carolina House and Senate were not able to come to an agreement before the start of the fiscal year, July the 1st of 2025. That would have been last year. And finally just getting it across the finish line last week here in Raleigh. And so with that, with it being almost 3 years since the state has had a new fiscal budget, the governor put in this position with the strong bipartisan support that he had to sign it. However, he made sure that everybody was aware of his objections. He made that abundantly clear. We are discussing a busy Tuesday at the governor's mansion in Raleigh as Democrat Governor Josh Stein has officially signed the state's 360-plus page, $34.4 billion budget that passed through the North Carolina General Assembly with strong bipartisan support last week, as you just heard from the governor, highlighting some of the major ticket wins and some of the major ticket items in here: Hurricane Helene recovery, raises for teachers and other state employees, some big-time wins there. He made it abundantly clear that this budget is very flawed and does not go far enough on a variety of different factors.
I won't sweep this budget's flaws under the rug, however.
Of course not.
The legislature is slashing more than 1,000 state government positions, making it harder for us to meet the people's health and safety needs.
Now, hold on a second here. I got to stop Governor Stein here. The state slashing, quote unquote, slashing these positions. A lot of these positions that he is talking about, the more than 1,000 across state government, many of these positions have been unfilled vacancies that have gone on for years. You've heard the term and you've heard some discussion about lapsed salaries in the last couple of years. A new report out back a little while ago from State Auditor Dave Bolick's office showing that many prominent state agencies across North Carolina have vacancies that go back years. And there's this little trick here in North Carolina where you as an agency, even if a position is unfilled, you are still collecting the salary that would be for an employee. You are still taking that in as a state agency, and you are essentially allowed to spend that money. It's a little narrow in how it can be spent. Can't give bonuses and things like that. But it essentially becomes a slush fund for these agencies. And you talk about potentially having dozens, if not hundreds of vacancies in some of these major departments. You're talking about millions of dollars a year that was supposed to be for employee salaries that these state agencies are now allowed to appropriate to whoever and whatever they want to do with. That's many of the 1,000 positions that the governor talks about. I'm going to make the point that if you have an unfilled vacancy, I would argue for more than a year, I might even argue 6 or 8 months, you probably don't need that position. Now, I understand there's some complex jobs, but if you can truly have a position unfilled for 6, 7, 9, 10, 12 months, and you're still able to operate as an agency, you're still able to do your job, spread the workload across a couple of other people, you probably don't need that person in the first place. And that comes back to a larger move and a larger push by the General Assembly in recent years, dealing with some level of fiscal responsibility. If you can have a position unfilled for a year and a half, you probably don't need that employee. Because if you truly needed it, you would have filled it in that year and a half time span. So let's make sure we're clear that the state government didn't just go, oh, we're firing 1,000 people. Many of these jobs that you just heard from the governor that are eliminated did not have any people in them and had not had people in them for quite some time. More from Governor Stein.
Many state employees' raises don't even keep up with inflation, and even the more meaningful raises that are in the budget still leave us lagging behind our neighbors in competitive salaries.
All right, I'm sorry, I have to jump in again and cut off the governor. This is always the case. It's never enough. You've heard me talk about this before. This is a constant meme from those on the political left. Some of the salary increases in this budget range from 5 to 25%, depending on where you work and what agency you're in. You're talking about some major salary increases. But even with that, and having looked at some of the commentary on social media over the last 24 hours since the budget was signed. There's a lot of complaining about how, oh, well, an average 8% teacher increase is good, but it's not anywhere near enough. 8% is not anywhere near enough? What is the number? What should the number be? 20%? 40%? 80%? I mean, folks, money is not infinite. There's only so many dollars that the state of North Carolina has access to. This is a $34.4 billion budget. I am so sick of this constant moving of the goalposts by those on the political left as it relates to things like spending for personnel. Yeah, when you decide to work for state government, that is a reality that you probably have to take into consideration. Now, there's other benefits as well. You get a lot more holidays. You get way more lucrative benefits, including access to the state retirement system, the state health plan. There are advantages that are not immediately reflected in your salary for working for government. When you have a government job, when you are a government employee, things that folks in the private sector don't have access to. Very comprehensive retirement systems, including a pension. Some of the most affordable health care available in the state of North Carolina. Those are some of the advantages. So yes, you may be making a couple $1,000s less than some private sector workers, or hell, even other states. But that is a decision you make when you decide that you're going to go work for government. There is a trade-off. You get the stability of working at government. You get the benefits of working for government. You never hear that discussed when individuals like Josh Stein and other Democrats are talking about salaries and pay schedules and all of this other stuff. That stuff is a major impact on the state budget. Taxpayers in North Carolina spend a fortune every year on subsidizing health insurance for state employees, subsidizing pension and retirement plans for state employees. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying we should get rid of that stuff, but that needs to be brought into the equation, because it is not anywhere near what is offered in most places within the private sector. More from Governor Stein.
The budget cruelly punishes low-income people who need access to justice. It eliminates the Office of Minority Health and Health Disparities, which ensures that all people can get the care they need to address their health conditions, as well as the Office of Historically Underutilized Businesses, which connects people to jobs and opportunities. It creates unfunded mandates for local governments. At the same time, the General Assembly is taking away mechanisms that are available to them to raise revenues. It makes real the General Assembly's wrong-headed threats of retribution against Charlotte. Charlotte needs to enhance road safety and minimize community impact, and that balancing process should be collaborative. It's full of unconstitutional and petty provisions that strip power from the executive branch, politicize state government, and undermine its efficiency. These provisions are certainly counterproductive. But as I previously noted, the legislature has accepted many of my big-ticket budget recommendations. And having just celebrated America 250 this weekend, we remember that our democracy has always run on compromise for the common good. And for these reasons, and because it delivers for North Carolinians in important ways, I support this budget.
Interesting comment there from Stein. Of course, he's going to have his political objections with the legislature. But something keen that I highlighted, he said that they put unconstitutional things in this budget, yet he signed it into law. That should be a huge red flag right there. Why would the governor purposefully sign a budget that is against the state constitution, that is against state law? The governor is signing off on the legislature breaking the law? I don't think so. That's just more partisan politics from Democrat Governor Josh Stein. We'll get into more audio from the governor's mansion coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Before that, I want to tell you about the law group here in Wilmington and thank them for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show, and remind you that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the law group. Since 2003, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, no matter the issue, the law group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, folks. They're not some big national law firm. Melissa Gott and the team over at the Law Group live right here in our community. Their offices located in downtown Wilmington. They're just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at lawgroupnc.com. That's 910-251-6088, or online, lawgroupnc.com. It's the Law Group. Experience and dedication you can rely on. We appreciate the Law Group and their continued support here of the Nick Craig Show. All right, quick break. We'll hear more from Governor Stein coming up, as the state of North Carolina officially has a new budget in place as of yesterday morning. Those details as the Nick Craig Show continues. Streaming live this morning, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, and available 24/7 wherever you get your podcasts. A good Wednesday to you, and welcome back to the Nick Craig Show, continuing our coverage today of a busy Tuesday at the governor's mansion in Raleigh, as Democrat Governor Josh Stein has officially signed North Carolina's $34.4 billion state budget into law. We talked about this in great detail last week here on the Nick Craig Show. If you missed some of that discussion, I'd encourage you to go check out the podcast. We went through a pretty extensive breakdown of the budget last Thursday. A lot of clips from the General Assembly with lawmakers breaking down some of the details in this budget, some of the major investments that this budget makes, some of the arguments from Democrats on the floor of the North Carolina House and Senate that were not in favor of this budget. That was last Thursday's show. In your favorite podcast app or over on YouTube, Rumble, or any of the other platforms, the title of the show, The North Carolina Budget, and that's Thursday, July the 2nd. Would highly encourage you to go check out that podcast and get caught up to date if you missed some of that debate and some of that discussion. Nevertheless, as the governor just claimed that this budget has some major flaws, has some major issues, as I noted at the open, he was in a position where he had no choice but to sign it. This budget passed with such overwhelming majorities in both the North Carolina House and Senate that vetoing it would have been incredibly short-sighted from a political standpoint from the governor. And again, I'll give him credit. To this point, my opinion is allowed to change. I'm not saying this is not set in concrete. This is not set forever. To his point, Governor Josh Stein has done a very good job attempting to get along with Republican lawmakers. Now, he has vetoed many common sense pieces of legislation that I adamantly disagree with. But this signing of this budget, even though I believe he didn't have much of a choice politically, is a step towards a Democrat governor working with a North Carolina legislature that is controlled by Republicans. And I've got to give Josh Stein credit for, at this point, attempting to work with them. Because we saw under his predecessor, now Roy Cooper, who wants to be your next U.S. Senator from North Carolina, he refused to work with them at all. He vetoed every single budget, all but one budget that was put in front of him when he was in the governor's mansion for 8 years. And what happened? The legislature would come back in, they would override his veto, and the budget would become law. And so I'll give Stein credit for that, regardless of some of his objections on the budget. The governor in the signing ceremony on Tuesday at the governor's mansion highlighted some of the areas of spending across the state. He started off with education. Take a listen.
Let me tell you how it delivers. The budget delivers for Christian. Christian Martin is a Winston-Salem native who teaches 8th grade English and social studies in Craven County. He also serves on my teacher advisory committee, and he's here with us today. He's known that he wanted to become a teacher ever since he was in high school. And as his college friends were debating careers with better financial outcomes, he knew that to pursue his passion, he would have to make a financial sacrifice. Beginning teachers are choosing to forego other more lucrative careers, and if they stay in North Carolina, they're missing out on better salaries that they could earn in our neighboring states.
All right, I've just got to stop the governor again here. This is not to say that teachers should not be frustrated with pay. Again, that is a fine, fair, legitimate discussion to have. But we've also got to mention, as I mentioned a little while ago, the benefits of being a public educator in a state like North Carolina. A, you only work 10 months out of the year. You're compensated as a full-time year-round employee. You only work 10 months. And you get access to things like a retirement plan through the state of North Carolina, the state retirement system, and you get access to the state health plan, as well as plenty of other benefits of being a public employee. And so when the governor says, when Christian and his college buddies were determining what to do and he wanted to be a teacher but knew that, that's a decision that was made. That's the case with every other position too. There are benefits of working for government. There are benefits of working for the private sector. There are disadvantages of working for the private sector. There are disadvantages of working for government. And one of the biggest disadvantages of government is the lack of competitive pay in many positions. And so then you as an individual who has the ability to make a decision has to weigh the pros and cons. Is less money worth only working 10 months a year? Is it worth state health plan? Is it worth state retirement? People have free will. They've made these decisions to go into a field like education. It comes with its pros. It comes with its cons. The private sector is the same way. You don't have in the private sector, you don't have the luxury of a state-funded retirement system. You're lucky if your employer kicks in 2 or 3% to your 401k or your IRA. Many places don't even offer that. Some of the health insurance options that you have in the private sector are atrociously bad. And at any given point, you're terminated, which is something that is not a very common thing in state government. Now, the pay might be a little bit more. That's a big pro. So again, you're weighing out the pros and the cons. Everybody has free will and can make these decisions. If I decided today that I was going to go work for local or state government, I would weigh out what are the pros and cons. Salary might be a little less, but this benefit package is pretty lucrative. If that doesn't interest me, then maybe I need to look at the private sector. The salaries are a little bit higher. The benefits kind of suck. I don't get all of these vacation days and holidays. It's not as lucrative of an incentive package. Pro and con. You, as an individual, have to weigh what is more important for you or what you want to do. And so I have a little bit of an objection when these discussions and comments are made about state employees like they were forced into these positions and all of the other benefits of working for government are completely ignored. I just have a huge objection to that, more from Governor Stein.
But today we are beginning to right that wrong. This budget I'm signing delivers the largest raise for starting teachers in nearly a half a century.
Well, that's pretty big.
It is also the largest overall teacher pay raise in about 15 years. And when it comes to student outcomes, this budget embraces ideas that work: advanced teaching roles, science of reading expansion, school safety grants, apprenticeships, all ideas that I had included in my budget recommendation because they will improve student achievement. Our kids are our future, and no investment is more important than the ones we make in them.
And so you just heard there directly from the horse's mouth, the largest the largest raise for starting teacher pay in 25 years, making North Carolina for starting teachers the highest salary in the southeast half of the United States. It's pretty big. It's a pretty major feat there. An average 8% raise for other educators across the state of North Carolina. Pretty substantial. So for anybody that wants to claim that Republicans hate education, hate the public school system, my favorite is Republicans are defunding the public school system. Not sure why they would have given teachers an average raise of 8% if they were defunding the public school system. I don't know why they'd be giving teachers a $500 to $1,000 bonus. I don't know why they would have raised starting teacher pay to the highest in the southeast half of the United States if, in fact, they were trying to defund public education. See, that's part of the problem when you make these statements, when you throw around these things with no logic behind them, when they're not backed up by any sort of fact or reality, but you can just yell them ad nauseum. They sound good, right? It sounds good to put on a billboard that Republicans hate public schools, that Republicans hate teachers. It sounds pretty good, but rubber meets the road. Here's the General Assembly, the Republican-led General Assembly's $34.4 billion budget, making some of these major investments in public education, which at the same time we're told by Democrats they're trying to defund. I'm not sure how the math works out on that. If you're trying to starve out and kill the public education system, not sure why the state would have invested all of the money. I'm not sure why Republicans would have invested all of the money that they do in this budget for a program and for a system that they are apparently trying to shut down and squeeze out. It's totally illogical. But that, of course, doesn't stop the narrative from those on the political left. Doesn't stop them, hasn't stopped them. We are talking about the state budget this morning. State budget here this morning. Governor Josh Stein signing the $34.4 billion state budget on Tuesday in the governor's mansion, hosting a signing ceremony. We've heard a little bit from the governor about some of his objections, some of the things that he believes this budget does well. Here's the governor talking about some of the public safety investments in this budget.
This budget delivers for Derek. Captain Derek Simmons is a shift supervisor at Noose Correctional Institution who's worked in corrections for 28 years. He works to provide offenders a safe environment, a positive role model, and a new way of thinking. But where he used to have 28 correctional officers on duty at a time, he now only has 7 or 8. These vacancies compromise security and strain the officers who remain. Our state is facing similar vacancy challenges across state law enforcement agencies and public safety. In fact, the State Highway Patrol is currently making do with about 350 sworn vacancies across the department. Vacancies happen when we don't invest in people, when we don't pay our hardworking law enforcement officers in a way that honors the demands of their work. This budget works to make it right with a minimum of a 13% pay increase for state law enforcement officers and correctional officers, as well as a $1,750 bonus for local law enforcement officers. Since serving as your Attorney General, I have been hearing from police chiefs and sheriffs, many of whom are here today, about their challenge of recruitment and retention. Because as we all know, law enforcement is not an easy job. It's a tough job, but it is a critical one for our communities. When we cannot recruit and retain public-spirited officers, North Carolina families become at risk. So we have to do everything in our power to support those who keep North Carolina safe. This budget takes important steps forward on public safety.
It absolutely does, and that's been a big emphasis, a big focus by the North Carolina General Assembly. A lot of money in this budget also going to Western North Carolina as our friends out west continue to rebuild from Hurricane Helene, the governor highlighting that.
This budget delivers for TW. T.W. Randall and his family have lived in their home in Bakersville in Mitchell County for about 20 years. When Hurricane Helene struck, their house flooded, causing damage to the foundation and roof. The Randall family didn't have anywhere else to go, so they stayed in their home until they got sick from the mold. Then they faced both a North Carolina summer and a mountain winter in a camper without the shelter of their home. TW works as a manager for the long-term recovery group in Mitchell County. So while he was facing his own challenges, he was hard at work solving other people's. Western North Carolina is dotted with stories like the Randalls, people who are hard at work at their recovery, and it is our job as a state and federal government to match their grit and determination. Western North Carolina, we stand with you. We're sending you more than $700 million in this budget. This is the third Hurricane Helene recovery package that I have signed since I was governor. This money will fuel temporary housing program, the temporary housing assistance program. It will support local governments. It will help fight wildfires, and it will repair more private roads and bridges. It will also fund more volunteer-driven home repairs like the one that helped the Randalls. It's also going to unlock matching funds from federal recovery programs. The state of North Carolina is committed to rebuilding Western North Carolina over the long haul, and I am grateful for the legislature's partnership in this work.
It's obviously a big feat out in Western North Carolina. Interesting comment there from the governor about some of the private entities. No surprise there. The private sector entities, some of the charity groups, and others that have been far more efficient and effective in rebuilding homes in businesses in Western North Carolina. All right, the final clip from the governor talks about working together and then lays into some of the other major flaws that he says this budget has, and then, of course, goes on to sign.
When we work together across our differences, and when we put our people first, we can get good things done for the people of North Carolina. These investments we are making today will move our state forward. They will point the way forward as well, where we need to keep going because we are not there yet. The truth is, North Carolina, we've got a lot of catching up to do because there have been years of chronic underinvestment in state and public services. The largest starting teacher pay raise in history still does not invest enough in our veteran teachers.
It's never enough.
The biggest correctional officer raises in our state has seen in years does not move us out of the bottom 10 states in the country.
Never enough.
The historic state trooper raises that we're excited about move starting pay from 49th to 41st in the country. If I told y'all we were 41st, you would not be proud. But it is a heck of a lot better than 49th.
Never enough.
Nurses and other state employees are going to make less money in real dollars today than they did 2 years ago when we last passed a budget because of inflation. And too many essential behavioral health investments have been left on the table by the General Assembly. For those who lose their job through no fault of their own, there are no increases for unemployment benefits, an area where we are lagging far behind neighboring states. And the budget fails to sustain our NC Career Work Centers, our NC Works Career Centers for those who are seeking employment. Short-sighted. Furthermore, the legislature is continuing to pay wealthy people to send their children to unaccountable private school At the same time, our public schools have been chronically underfunded.
Always, right? Always chronically underfunded. Paying wealthy people. You mean giving them like $800 in the tens of thousands that they pay to the state of North Carolina in taxes every year? Paying them to send their kids to a private school, and the chronically underfunded public school system. Just so that you have a little bit of an idea, between K through 12 education and the UNC system, that makes up more than half of North Carolina's yearly budget. This is a $34.4 billion budget. I don't exactly know what the breakdown is with this new budget, but it's either at or close to 50% of the money goes to education, either K-12 or the UNC system. And so if that is a chronic underfunding, half of a state's $34 billion budget, if that is a chronic underfunding, then we probably need to take a pretty hard look at the public education system as a whole. We need to probably take a look at that if 50% of a state's budget is not enough money.
And while the budget pushes out further tax cuts beyond this year, which is a good thing,
Interesting.
it nonetheless maintains future reckless pre-programmed tax cuts for corporate shareholders and the wealthy. Meanwhile, it failed to enact my working family's tax cuts that would have put more money into people's pockets, people who need it. We should be prioritizing the people of North Carolina, not big corporations. North Carolina's got a good thing going. We really do. And if we want to remain a top state where families want to raise their families, where people want to raise their families, where businesses want to invest, we have to continue to invest in the state, in our people. This commitment cannot be a one-time effort. It has to be something that we do over a period of years.
Yeah, and it has been done. Republicans over the last 15 years, after 100 years of disastrous Democrat control in Raleigh, in the North Carolina General Assembly, have put the state of North Carolina on the right course. It's why we've been the number one state for business 4 out of the last 6 years. It's the reason why we are seeing some of the most explosive population growth anywhere in the United States. It's not thanks to Roy Cooper. It's not thanks to Josh Stein. It's not thanks to the Democrats at all. It is due in large part to the tax policies that have been enacted by the North Carolina General Assembly over the last 15 years. Despite all of his complaining, despite all of his objections, it doesn't do enough, it doesn't do this, doesn't do that, it cripples this, it cripples that. What did the governor do? Signed the budget. He had absolutely no choice but to do so. This is a pretty good budget that was laid out by state lawmakers. It makes major investments in North Carolina, and I'm very glad that it is the Republicans leading this charge in Raleigh and not the Democrat Party after we'd seen their failures on full display here in North Carolina. That's it. That's the long and the short of it. You know, Roy Cooper did and Josh Stein has taken credit for the success of the legislature. And that, I mean, I get it. That's the spot he's in and his predecessor was in. They're the governor. But the things that he claims that he's objecting to, like tax cuts for the Wall Street investors, what he's talking about is taxes that everybody pays. Yes, wealthy people pay taxes too. Turns out, from a real dollar standpoint, a lot more than everybody else. So when you cut taxes across the board, when you say we're lowering the overall income tax rate to 3.49%, everybody gets to take advantage of that. Those that make $30,000 a year, those that make $300,000 a year, and those that make $3 million a year. Regardless of how many zeros are on the end of that, you take advantage of a lower tax rate. That is one of the large reasons why North Carolina is dealing with the success that it is right now. It is not thanks to Democrats. It is not thanks to their policies. It is not thanks to their governance in any way, shape, or form. And as we approach the midterm elections coming up here in November, as the entirety of the North Carolina General Assembly will be on the ballot, it is incumbent on conservatives, on Republicans across the state of North Carolina to make sure that they get out there and make sure that the Republicans maintain a majority in both the North Carolina House and Senate. Don't take my word for it. Go look at the state, the financial state that North Carolina was in prior to 2010. It was a freaking disaster. Who to blame? Nobody but the Democrats. They had majorities in the House, majorities in the Senate, and a Democrat governor was in the executive mansion in Raleigh. You can't blame the Republicans when you control both chambers of the legislature and the governor. And that's exactly what they had. Bev Perdue was in the governor's mansion, and Democrats had those majorities. So the budget is said and done. A big weight lifted off the shoulder of Republican lawmakers who now won't have to deal with the fact that they didn't pass a budget as a major talking point as we get closer to November. Of course, not everybody is happy. Plenty of complaints in a variety of different sectors. Again, it's not enough. This doesn't mean anything. All right, that's fine then. Then if that's the case, then I regret that the North Carolina General Assembly attempted to do some of this stuff. If you're complaining about a 5.5% raise and saying it's not enough, then I hope you get zero. I wish they would come back to Raleigh and strip that away completely. If it's not enough, then enjoy nothing. I'm so sick of listening to this. I'm so sick of reading comments. Well, this doesn't do enough for this specific sector. 5.5% will barely help me out. Guess who? I haven't gotten a 5.5% raise this year. Have you? I don't think most people have. And so you're getting a 5.5% raise. If you're not grateful for that, then turn it back in. Don't take the money. Give it back. Donate it to a charity. Do something with it. Don't bitch about getting a 5.5% raise and say, oh, it's not enough. It's so frustrating, so annoying, so nonsensical from so many different sectors and individuals here in North Carolina. You chose to work for government. You knew what the deal was. If you don't like it, go find a freaking job somewhere else. I'm sick of listening to everybody complain about it. You chose to work there. I chose to be an independent contractor. I have to deal with my own taxes myself. I've got to hold my own money aside. I'm not complaining about it on social media every day. I made the decision. I have awful health insurance because I don't work for anybody. It's a choice I made. I don't sit here and complain about it every day. Oh, woe is me. My insurance is too expensive. Oh, no. It's stupid. I made the choice. If I don't like it, go get a job somewhere. If you don't like it, go find somewhere else to work. It's a very simple thing. We have free will in the United States of America. We have free will here in North Carolina. If you're not satisfied with your employer, if you're not satisfied with your salary, if you're not satisfied with your benefits, go find somewhere else to work. I'll get off my soapbox. So the budget is said and done, $34.4 billion. Lawmakers expected to be back here in a couple of weeks as we approach the end of July. We'll keep an eye on everything as it continues to play out in Raleigh right here on the Nick Craig Show. All right, that's going to do it for a Wednesday edition. Thanks to the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com, or give them a call, 910-251-6088. The Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, is available 24/7 in your favorite podcast app, and is heard weeknights, 9 to 10 p.m. on WBT Radio in Charlotte. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll do it again tomorrow morning right here on the Nick Craig Show.